Hi, welcome to T-Bad's Trucks and Stuff. Today, I'm here with my 1988 F-150 that I just kind of, slapped it all together into a roller frame here so that I could see what I got, what I'm missing, and what I'm gonna need to continue on this project. So, I got one fender off, I've added some doors to it. That fender over there is my fender I'm going to use. I don't have a good fender to put on this side yet, so that's why it's missing. But today I'm going to pull that other fender off and replace or install some of the parts that I was missing whenever I scavenged around my yard and found everything I could to throw this together. There's quite a few things I was missing that would prevent this thing from being able to drive around the yard on its own. It needs a throttle cable, some brake lines, the steering here, if you get up close, is missing all the bushings and the little spring inside there. I found this Clutch Master cylinder reinforcement bracket that goes up there behind the steering column to the Clutch Master, and mine's an automatic, but it used to be manual, so it has this and all the bolt holes for it. So I'm gonna put that in just in case it ever turns to a manual again. This fender was just sitting here to see kind of how it looked with a nicer fender other than the old one that had a snorkel in it. And we could see my body lines really bad, and I'll show you why it's like that. So this cab, it had a lot of rust on it before I replaced the cab corners and the seam all the way across the back. So all that stuff was rusted out and failing. So all the support of the cab was on this, and it started crushing in the floor up there. So I added in these little plates that I put on. So the front of the cab and the rad support are gonna have to be shimmed accordingly since I added a little more space in there. See those couple dents in it? I think there, over there, somewhere else there's others. But it blew over in the wind when I had it sitting off to the side, so be careful where you put your parts at. You never know when the wind might come and blow them over. I'm gonna get this fender out of the way here. It's just sitting here. I was missing these two pieces. This little teeny spring and plastic bushing that go inside here to take up all the slot in the steering. So look where I found them. I was reading on the internet trying to find where to get the little bushing that goes in here in the little slip in the steering shaft, and the guy said if you're missing yours, check, it might be up in there. This is my parts one, but I think there's one up in there. Yep, look at that. Fished it out of there. The little bushing that takes up all the space in the slip of the steering. I was at the dealership the other day. They said that they couldn't get this piece anymore, so that was a pretty important one for me to come across. I found the little spring that goes in there too. It was laying on the floor over here in front of my little cabinet that's full of random stuff. Now that can just stay in there for safekeeping. That plastic bushing was from my parts truck, so there might be another one inside this half here that was from this truck jammed up in there. We'll have to see. Well, would you look at that? There was one in there. We'll just save that in there for later. since we're going to be painting and touching everything, I'm going to clean up the fluid they got on the frame and the dust and oily greasiness off of whatever components over here. Well, it's not much, but it is a little bit cleaner. I think I might wipe it down with a little wet nap kind of thing, and then at least we won't get oily fingers whenever I get to working on the door there. Wipe all this black old grease and dirt off all the electrical connectors. You can see I just gave it a quick wipe there. But wipe what I can anyways. Just with some cleaning wipes. Wipe up the fuel lines. I wiped this stuff all clean here. Cleaning what I can. It's a little bit cleaner around all this stuff. But for like those rubber hoses, I think I have an idea what to clean it with, but little wipes ain't gonna do very much to it. And then I need to pressure wash or clean with something that's got a little pressure to get it in all the grooves of everything. Before I get to ripping that steering column out of there and whatever else I need to out of the bottom of the dash, I got a seat I'm gonna try and test fit into here. I got this rear bench seat from a 2015 F-150. I'm gonna kind of test fit it in there and see if that's any good to use for a seat. I do have proper OBS seats too, a gray one and a red one, but I'm gonna try this out just to see how it is. Okay, take a look at this. This seat fits and looks way better in here than I was even expecting. Very nice look with the seat having a little bit of shape to it. And then look how close these brackets are to being at the right height up on that hump to the floor. Then this seat, it leans forward still, plus the bottom can go up and have a fully open floor. So I think I'm really going to consider building a custom bracket and putting that kind of bench seat in there. Here it is from the driver's side. Yeah, it looks really good. I think I want to use these black bezels that would match really good, and I got a red carpet that would go all the way underneath the seat right up to the back there, so there would be no bare spots. Let's see what it looks like folded up. Look at all the room in there now. You'd be able to get under your dash, clean anything you need to under your seat. I don't know, what do you think? Put it in the comments. Next, I'm gonna put that clutch master reinforcement bracket in, and I gotta get the steering column out of there for that. So we'll get that out, maybe give it a cleaning, check it all over. Okay, out with the steering column. And I'm gonna wipe this thing down good and clean it up before I put it back in. That was a tight fit in there. Getting it way in up to the top and behind the insulation. But I can reach all the bolting spots, so we'll get that bolted in and then we'll be ready for the steering column to come back when it's cleaned up. I found my throttle cable. I was worried about that one. You don't want to lose cables and stuff that are this old because they don't make them anymore. It can be hard to replace. Well, might as well stick that on however it goes too. There we go. I never had cruise before, but I got this part, it's from my diesel truck. There was a parts truck, so I hope it works. The rest of it I already had from when I switched it to a V8, but for some reason I lost that part or didn't install it. Throttle pedal engaged. It's got the C6 tranny, so once we push the pedal and we get to there, this last little bit, hear the noise. A kick down lever there for passing gear. We got our steering column back in. Gave it a quick wipe down. All looks good. The bottom of the firewall, all the bolts tightened up and the insulation tucked back up how it goes. Should give that a wipe down as well. Get all that dust out of there. The shifter linkage there is back in its little bushing. And now to connect the steering column to the steering box, we're gonna go clean up and put back together that slip joint. Let's get this steering shaft in there and see how tight it'll be. We'll put some fresh grease and let's see what we got. So the way this goes together, the little spring goes right in here. Will it stay? And then this one slides over the end. So I'll show you when I put it in with no grease in it. This was how I test fit it to see how much play is going to be. So just like this goes on really easy. But look how much play we have there. Which that'll be bad in the steering wheel. So I need to shim the shim somehow. I cut up a little quart of oil and made this little plastic piece that I thought I could just slide in the back here, which I can put it in behind the shim, but when I go to slide the shaft on, it's way too tight. So this is too big of a shim, too big for what we're looking for. My next idea is to take these two little square or rectangle pieces of that oil container, and I'm going to stick them in here behind the spring this time. With the two little pieces of plastic behind the spring, this will still slide on nicely over the bushing, and then it's just firm in the spring. That was a two-handed job to get it in there, but now you can see it slips fairly easy, and look how tight it is. Like no play at all. Maybe the tiniest bit, but barely none. So I'll pull it back apart. Oh, look at the plastic thing stayed in there. And we'll put some grease on that stuff and stick it on and see how it is with grease in it. A little bit of blue thread locker on there to make sure that that stays in. And then look at my joint here. So when it was apart, I checked where the plastic should be according to this rust and paint kind of line, and we're almost in the perfect spot. It could be like a 16th lower, but it probably did have a little bit of movement in there, and you can see we don't have barely any play at all with that spring being nice and tight in there. And that fresh grease, it should keep it from seizing up. You can see a tiny bit of play, but it's hard to get it perfect. I got rid of the play, most of it, in the shaft. There is still a little bit there, but there's a lot of play in the steering box. So I'm gonna adjust this bolt on the steering box and make that a little bit better, a little tighter. So I know when doing this, you don't want to put it too tight because you'll cause excessive wear. But we do want it a little bit tighter. So where we're right over here somewhere. Let's go. Does loosening make it tighter? I think loosening makes it tighter because it pulls the gear up into it. Well, I definitely did it wrong. I loosened it all the way. It is got to tighten that center one. I looked it up in my good old Haynes manual here and double checked on the internet, and yep, I was wrong. So let's do that the opposite way. Loosen that up. It also said in that manual that I'm supposed to do this with no fluid in there and with a torque wrench, but I don't know. So that's where we originally were. Let's go half turn. Full turn. I feel some pressure on it, so that's all the way tight. Let's get a half a turn off of that. See what it feels like with it back all the way tightened. Doesn't feel any different, but we're not gonna leave it all the way tight. We'll go half a turn off, I think, because that was still more than it originally was. And we'll try that out to begin. What can you see from there? I see most of my play is in the top half up here. Does it move? Not unless I put pressure on it, eh? I wonder if I adjusted that properly. At the steering wheel, about that much, which is probably almost an inch less than it was. So we'll go with it for now, at least till we can get it running and be able to drive around and feel what it actually feels like. Okay, let's get this shifter bracket bolted in here. That little guy go on the bottom there? Must keep all the wires out of the way. Okay, that'll do. And then our linkage here. I can see where it used to be, so I'm just gonna basically put it there. I'll do a proper adjustment on this once the body mounts and everything are actually there and bolted down, because this for now won't be accurate anyways. I don't know if you can tell, but I extended this piece here to make it work with my body lift. I added 3 inches in the middle of it. I'm definitely missing some bolts out there, but it's a good thing I got only Ford bolts at my house. Organized ones plus a tote of them in the back. I think those little guys there, that's probably what we're looking for. A couple of them will be in there. These two right here, that's the kind I'm looking for. Little things like having this little cover on here and the right bolts in it. The right bolts whenever possible makes a big difference on the finished result of your projects. So that's why I save all these bolts from my parts vehicles, because you never know when you might need one or you might lose one, what might happen. But if you go to buy these are probably $5, maybe $7 a piece, these little tiny bolts from Ford. They're not cheap ones, but we save them. Sometimes I paint them and make them brand new looking again. But for now, I'm just making sure to get them organized and know that I got them there. We can come back later and take this bracket off and the bolts off, clean them, paint the bracket, get all that stuff all finished up nicely. My stainless steel brake line kit showed up, but I gotta take my time and go around, clean inside all these on the little seats in them and stuff, and prepare that and the proportioning valve and all the other parts of the brake system before I get installing them in there. Whole box of brake lines. I'm pretty excited to get them on, but just want to make sure I got everything prepared before I do it. Well, that's gonna do it for this one. We got a couple of them small important parts, like the throttle cable and all the assembly up there together, the steering shaft and as much play eliminated as we can, the shifter linkage, a few small things there done, that bracket underneath the steering column and then the bottom of the dash cleaned up and back together. Got the 2015 F150 rear 60/40 bench seat. Tell me what you think about that. And yeah, I think it's probably about time I start getting to the body work on the doors and the rest of the front of the truck. And I got to gather more parts for things like my brake lines or my second fuel tank. We also got to diagnose the engine a little bit more, but I'm gonna wait until we get everything bolted together and more secure so I don't damage nothing. So that'll be it for today. Make sure you check back into T-Bad's trucks and stuff and see how this project goes. It's coming along very nice.